Hi, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and I am up at the Northern Michigan Garden today. It is the beginning of August, and I wanted to take you for a walk through these gardens and show you some of the things that have done really well this summer, as well as maybe things that haven't done so well. For those of you who are new, this is a Zone 5 garden. So if you're seeing any of the plants in this garden, that means that they're hardy down to at least a Zone 5, maybe even colder. And for those of you in warmer climates, many of these items will do well for you as well in your garden. So let's go ahead and take a walk and check out what's blooming in the garden today. We're going to start out right along the house here and show you this area. To be honest, I think this is probably one of my favorite areas in the garden right now. I just think there's so much color, even though a lot of it's just coming from foliage. Let's start off here talking about this, this Crescent Planter though. So all of the planters that we have in this garden are self-watering planters, which means they need to get refilled about every 5 to 7 days with water. When we refill them, we also put some water-soluble fertilizer down in the pot. That way these plants are also constantly getting fed. Some of the things that we use this year in the planter is the Bossa Nova white begonias, and they're doing beautifully. This area here is eastward facing, so morning sun until about noon. We've got some geraniums in there, along with some milkweed. And then we tried this new Senecio angel wings this year as well, and I think that really adds just some really unique texture into this container. Down along the walk here, we have some of the Heliopsis Tuscan Gold, which is doing great. Typically this is a full sun plant, but it's doing really well here in this part shade garden. This is the Dark Side of the Moon Astilbe. This was recently planted, so it hasn't bloomed yet. So we're just kind of excited to wait for that to bloom. A few polka dot plants down there just for some color. Making our way around. We've got some beautiful Heuchera that are blooming right now. That great color contrast I think sets off nicely against the greens. A few Beacon Impatiens. Sun Patient Purple is doing nice and looks really pretty against the green of that Hacklenacloa all gold grass. And honestly, I think it's this grass that really is setting this garden like apart for me. I love how the grass is looking in this area. In the background, there is some more Sun Patience white along with a hosta. And you can see we just kind of repeated more of that polka dot plant with Beacon Impatiens, some Sun Patience to really kind of fill out this area here. We had a bunch of Infinity Impatiens left this year, so we gave them a try as well and created this, it's a packed full bed of the Infinities. This was looking really great up until about a week ago or so, and I think the deer maybe have been browsing on these, and that's why we're not seeing a lot of flowers. But this was really just a massive area of solid flowers before the deer started browsing. So if you can imagine all these pretty colors you're seeing, just solid over this whole area. Rod did plant it really full, so you wouldn't need to plant it this full if you were doing this yourself. But like I said, we had extras, so he just packed them all in here. But they were doing really great. A lot of beautiful different variations of color. We took pretty much all the colors that we had available and created this mixed little flowering bed here. Up near the road, this bed continues to do well. We've got ornamental grasses in here. The thing I like with ornamental grasses is I like how they add just a little bit of that vertical height, but they also add motion when it's a nice breezy day. So ornamental grasses are just really nice to kind of poke in areas to add just a little bit of a different look and texture to the garden. In this bed, we have the white Sun Patience, and they're doing really well. Minimal deer browsing at this point. In the back, there's some Sun Patient Deep Pink. As we get a little closer to the road, we'll notice that there's a little less flowers going on, and I think that, like right in this area here, is probably because of the deer browsing. But even though they took the flowers off, there's still just a ton of buds on these plants. So I'm not too worried. I mean, even if they are having a little bit of a snack, there's still plenty of flowers for me to enjoy. In the back there, we have some Caladium, and those have done really nice. Those the deer haven't really touched, which is great. One plant though that they really do like are these black sweet potato vines. These are part of that Upside series. These are new sweet potato vines for next year, and these are supposed to be a climbing sweet potato vine, but they are not getting any size on them because the deer keep eating. That green plant there is a hellebore, and that is a spring bloomer, although as I go in and take a look, this is an old bloom, but just a little bit of a flower there, and that's, like I said, it's a spent bloom, that's why it looks a little but a really great plant to add some spring color to the garden. And I think the one that really is shining right now in this space is the Aurelia Sun King. And I just love that beautiful chartreuse color. I think it really pops nicely here in this garden up against all the deeper greens and all the beautiful colors here in the garden. So Aurelia Sun King, if you have an area that's shade or part shade, that's where that plant really is well suited and adds just a beautiful splash of color to those type of spaces. Just take a look here at the rest. They're really doing very well. I mean, August, and these plants are still looking gorgeous. In front of the red and white sun Impatiens, we have the Lobelia blue and white, and that's doing pretty good too. So typically that plant in the past has kind of fizzled out in the heat of the summer, but this is an improved version, and it's really kind of a pretty just little splash of that blue color. And I love, how Rod planted that with the red, white, and blue theme in mind. Heading to the front garden bed, this will be interesting to see what's still growing well here, although there's a lot of color we're seeing from the distance. I can tell you too that I'm seeing areas of where the deer have been munching here as well. Again, they seem to really like the sun Impatiens. I mean, there's still a lot of color there, but you can see that they should be a lot fuller of color. We'll go in and take a look. It's not like I can really see where the deer have been eating, but I definitely can tell because there's just not the flowers that I would expect to see this time of year. Allium blue bubbles. This is a new allium for 2023. A lot paler lavender color than what the serendipity or millennium are, but really the flowers are quite a lot larger. So definitely a much bigger flower than allium and serendipity, but you can see too there's just not as many of them on the plant. In the ground we have some more of the Lobelia blue along with the Lasmachia creeping jenny. Salvia unplugged pink, I believe is what that one is. We've got some white leucanthemum. These are Daisy May, and they're kind of ready to be trimmed back. Some Bidens are the the orange flowers. Here's a lupin, and that looks like the deer might have been eating on that. More sun Impatiens. Supertunia Vista Snowdrift, some iris, Gomphrena, which is great for the hummingbirds. There's a lot of hummingbirds in this area, as well as a lot of different butterflies as well. Cleome, Senorita Rosalita. And this kind of repeats as we head over to this side. Definitely here you can see deer have eaten. As you can see, the stalks are just munched right off. It's okay if they have a couple things, just they can't eat everything in this garden. I can see their little footprints too. At least it's not the bear. The bear was here, it's been about a month ago now. So yeah, so everything's looking fairly well. Even the sun Impatiens that the deer have eaten. I mean, there's enough of them here that they're still throwing off some color. There's another blue bubbles allium there, looking really nice. Meteor showers verbena tucked in. That's a great plant for the butterflies. You can see in this bed we have a lot of ornamental grasses as well. which it's a pretty calm day today, so there's not a lot of swaying or motion going on. But on a breezy day, it's really pretty to watch the ornamental grasses as they just sway in the breeze. For us here in Michigan, I usually leave the ornamental grasses up until the spring, and the reason I do that is because I like how they look in the winter when the snow collects on them, and it also just adds a little vertical interest to the garden for the winter time as well. The yellow flowers we're seeing are Coreopsis, and you can see Coreopsis is certainly one of those plants that spreads. The clump continues to get bigger and bigger. For this garden situation, I think it's fine because it's given a lot of color, but this may not be the right plant for every garden situation because it does tend to spread and take over areas. Here's a garden mum that came back from last year, which is exciting because typically for me anyway, garden mums don't come back. So that's really a big specimen. So that will be pretty when it blooms. It looks like it might be white because I'm seeing a couple little buds. Some more sun patiens. And these are on the back side, so they're not quite as accessible to the deer as they're walking down the road. And again, more of the Coreopsis. All right, let's head over to the next garden bed and see how it's doing. So one of my favorite plants that I bought from somewhere else this summer has definitely been this tropical hibiscus that I got. I'm typically not an orange person, I've said that before, but this is the most beautiful shade of orange. And I feel like too, like with tropical hibiscus, you expect them to be kind of like oranges and yellows and pinks, but this has just absolutely been a beautiful little addition here to my little table. Let me see if I can tell you what it is. Because someone's going to ask, I'm sure. It's part of the Summer Vibes series. Hibiscus, orange hibiscus is what it said. So really a very beautiful, beautiful tropical hibiscus plant. Looking behind the chairs here, there's a lot tucked back here. You can see the caladiums are lining the edge and then the back up against the house. I asked Rod the other day, what's going on with them? Like in this little corner here, they look like they're not doing quite as well. And he said it's because they're not getting enough water in this corner. Whereas they head out a ways, they're a little bit fuller because they are getting more water. So that is the story on the caladiums. Why some maybe are looking better than others is depending how much water you're getting. All right, so tucked in right along the deck here, we have the Euphorbia Diamond Snow, and that's looking really nice. Daisy Melecanthemum, ready to be deadheaded. Heuchera. And then the red you're seeing, those are Surefire Red Begonias. Heading over towards the pole, more of the Daisy May. The hanging basket this year is geraniums and Silver Falls. I think the problem with the geranium is it's getting too much water because it's on a drip system here and therefore not putting out as many flowers as what we'd hoped. Also, Rod just deadheaded it, so anything that was on here not looking good, he got rid of. So that's part of what's going on here too. I love geraniums, but sometimes too much care is too much care. They like to have a little bit of maybe less water than more in my experience. Around the pole, we put a bunch of the new Ultramarine. Let's go in and get a closer look here. And they're doing okay. They're doing a lot better in my home garden. But it is pretty just to see these various splashes of color here. Got the Firelight Tidbit just starting to put on some blooms. That will be pretty when it's blooming. Rod also put some Diplodenia in the ground, which this is not like your typical place where you'd put Diplodenia. Like normally you'd put it in a basket or a container. But it's doing good, just kind of mingling here throughout the other plants. Some sun patience. In this container here, I'll back up so you can see the full thing here in a minute. There's a lot going on. The black plant in the middle, I don't know what that is, so I apologize. It's a house plant that we picked up from a local garden center as well. I love the texture and I love the black. It almost looks like a rhamnus. I don't believe that it is because it's a tropical, but the texture and the color I think is really pretty. So just something different I wanted to try this year. In this planter, we have the Angelonia, Angel Face Purple, which is looking a little bit wild. Some more caladiums that are looking nice. We've got Verbena, Violet Ice. So this container, I think, is kind of packed too much with stuff. So like everything's kind of fighting its way. There's the Angelonia again. And then in the back here is the Salvia. This is the Golden Delicious, which I think is a nice contrast up against the black there of that Thriller in the container. Sun Patience. Here's the new Raspberry Monarda, just starting to bloom. This was planted just recently, so they're not super big. Dicentra, Pink Diamonds, never disappoints, always in bloom. There's another one back there blooming. The white is, or the yellow is Gold Dust, and that's not doing super good here. So I'm not sure what the difference is between here and back at the garden center. This almost looks a little bit, the foliage looks a little bit yellow, so I don't know if it's too dry in this spot, which could be because it's not always getting the water when we're not here. So I don't know, that might be what's going on with that Gold Dust. Another Monarda there, kind of at the end of its bloom cycle. Here you can see the Ultramarine just a little bit nicer. Some more Sun Patience, and the coneflowers. They are doing spectacular this time around. So they've been kind of working their way to bloom cycle, you know, like in the last video, but right now they are just really in their prime. This is a new coneflower for 2023. And I'm gonna have to pop the name up on the screen because I'm sure I'm gonna get it wrong, but I feel like it might be like Raspberry Sorbet. But I just love those beautiful, beautiful pink blooms. Look at that coloration there, gorgeous. And then a lot of these other ones that are in here are the proven winners. Frankly Scarlet, Orange You Awesome. Beautiful assortment here of different colors and textures for coneflowers. Making our way down the hill, we have the Clematis Vines that we tucked in along this little retaining wall. They were blooming earlier. Most of these are the funky, like funky pink, funky purple, and funky blue. But there's also pink mink on here, and pink mink bloomed earlier, but it's given us a few little blooms right now. And you can see those beautiful little pink flowers there. So just kind of a nice little covering for this wall space is the clematis. And it's going to continue to fill out as the years go on, so then we won't have to even look at that retaining wall at all. So that will be kind of nice. Making our way down the drive, we've got Allium Serendipity just starting to wake up into bloom. Tuscan Gold Heliopsis doing great. I love the yellow, that golden yellow up against the blue siding. These are Beacon Impatiens tucked in there for some constant annual color. And then again, more of the Allium Serendipity and the Tuscan Gold Heliopsis. This little bed here was more earlier color with a lot of the opening Act Phlox. There's Veronica in here, or Salvia in here, and then some of the tall phlox that have already bloomed. So this area right now really is kind of lackluster with not a lot going on. Let's head over to the front of the cottage and see what's blooming on the lakeside. There's still like a lot of work in progress going on in this area. You can see all those stones, a retaining brick kind of sitting up there. We got to come up with a plan for that area there. Do we want to put plants there? Do we want to build a deck there? I'm not sure what we're going to do in that area. So it's kind of just like in a holding pattern right now. But this garden bed here was planted in 2020 with all of the perennials and shrubs. And then we add annuals in just to kind of give those constant splashes of color. So I said to Rod when we got up here this past time, I said, it just looks very messy in this bed. He had a lot of annuals planted in here and they weren't doing great. And it just looked like a big kind of weedy mess, even though it wasn't weeds. It was just like super bells and some petunias that just weren't looking great. So he came in here and he removed all of the super bells and petunias and all the random annuals he had in this bed. And it's looking a lot better. The other thing is earlier in the season, like those annuals were fine because none of these plants, these perennials and shrubs were in bloom. But now that these perennials and shrubs are in bloom, like you really didn't need that extra annual color. So what he left in this area was the Vista Jazzberry Supertunia along the front. And that's doing really nice, giving that constant splash of color. I'm going to zoom in a minute. There's a hummingbird moth. Look at that pretty moth enjoying that Buddleia Pugster blue. It's so pretty to see all the different little creatures in this garden. Also, he left in this area a few of the sun patiens that are doing well. The sun patiens don't necessarily need a lot of fertilizer, so that's part of why they're doing well in this garden bed. There's another one there. So let's head over to the far side and see what all is going on over there to show you a little closer what we've put in this garden bed. So lining these big retaining wall bricks, we did a lot of the Bobo hydrangeas. So the Bobo hydrangeas are just starting to put on some flowers. So that's going to look really nice. And then we also put in some of the mini Mauvette hydrangeas. So those are blooming right now. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you can see this garden is probably about 2 to 3 weeks behind what the garden is both at my house and at the garden center. So it's kind of fun to just see how different areas things come to life at a little bit different time. Tucked in the corner over here, we have Spirea double play doozy. And the reason we planted these here is these are deer resistant. So if a deer gets up here, hopefully he'll like see these and be like, oh, those aren't for me, and back off. But to get up here really would be a challenge in and of itself, because as we continue to walk, this is where that steep hill is. If you watch the video of Rod planting this hill up, you can see it would be quite a challenge for the deer to get in this space. This is all ajuga, part of the Feathered Friends series, and Rod planted this really tight because we want to hold this bank here. It's just kind of all dirt, and this ajuga is a fairly aggressive ground cover that will spread, and by planting it along the edge here, we want to just use it basically for bank retention so that the soil doesn't slide down the hill. The red we planted are the Surefire begonias, and we just did that for a splash of color. We had some left over, so we just put those in over the 4th of July as well. So I think that looks nice up against the different various colors of the ajuga. Getting back to the bed I'm actually standing in right now, we'll head back through it and see. So we did a sweep of cone flowers, just starting here at one end, and as we kind of walk through, they just kind of meander their way to the very end. And I love cone flowers for one, and I wanted to plant like one of everything. So we didn't get one of everything, but we did get a lot of different various colors of cone flowers in here. The butterflies like it, the pollinators like it, and that's why I wanted them. Here's another mini Mauvette, and I think we've got about 5 or 6 of the mini Mauvette. So I'll kind of pan over and let you see that, wherever you're seeing that light pink, that's mini Mauvette. So just to kind of carry that consistent look through. The thought with that was mini Mauvette blooms before Bobo, and that way we can kind of have that transition of color as we go on throughout the season. Also, we did a planting of the Pugster blue butterfly bushes. There is 4 of them in here, and these are just starting to bloom. As we saw just a few minutes ago, the Hummingbird Moth was enjoying them. The thing I like with the Pugster blue butterfly bush is check out that blue color. Like, is that not the most gorgeous blue flower you've ever seen? The plant only gets about 2 foot tall and 2 foot wide, but the flowers and the amount of flowers they produce is just amazing. So excited for these Pugster blues to open. Kind of have that red, white, and blue theme unintentionally going on again here, except for we'll call it red, pink, and blue. Just gonna love once the Pugsters really start opening up. Another plant that's blooming right now is the opening Act Phlox, and that's doing really nice. This one here, let me see if we left a tag in the garden to see for you what one this is. This is the Ultra Pink Opening Act Phlox. Really quite a beautiful color. Looks nice with that purple. So now that we removed all of the annuals, with the exception of these jazzberries and a few sun patiens, I just feel like this bed looks so much tidier looking. So annuals have their place. Their place was earlier in the summer, but now that everything is waking up and flowering on its own in the perennial and shrub world, we can get rid of those annuals that weren't looking so great. Now we're going to head over to the final bed. Thanks for sticking with me so far. This one was just planted about in the last 2 months, so let's go take a look. So right now I'm standing at the bottom of this 3-tiered bed. I'll kind of show you as it goes up. This is on about a 16% grade, the driveway next to it. So it's quite a steep hill. So we put 3 different retaining walls in just to kind of break it up a little bit, and so that the water just doesn't run right down the hill. In this area here, we have some diamond snow euphorbia, the beautiful white there. Some cutting edge tiarella, which is going to be a great just foliage plant. There's some New Guinea Impatiens, some beautiful coleus that really is popping there. Along the back wall is some incredible sunflowers, along with that ultra white phlox. Around the flagpole, Rod did some sun patiens, the red and the white. And then there's some blue salvia in here as well to kind of give that red, white, and blue look. Some lupin and daylilies are planted in that little area, along with Monarda and some salvia. So that will really have a lot of pretty color from spring and throughout the summer as the plants mature. In this lower bed here, a lot of annuals for now. Some lemon coral sedum, Delisperma, which is that flat one. It's not flowering right now, but that's really pretty when it flowers. Classic coral dianthus. A little grouping here of the geranium roseanne. Jazzberry, Supertunia Vista jazzberry. We kept the sedum that was here because it was a nice looking sedum. And then that bright chartreuse color, that's the oregano, the perennial oregano. We kept the grass that was in this area. It just looks like it's just a nice, fairly compact grass. Behind, we planted the lilac crush hibiscus, which I think is going to be a problem with the deer. So I'm going to kind of watch it. But I had a beautiful bud ready to open the other day, and it was gone the next day. So the only thing I can think of is deer. But there are still some buds there, so I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'll keep you informed on how the deer are doing with that one. We have a Stand By Me clematis that was planted here up against these little poles. That clematis likes to kind of cling to something, so, or not cling, but have support. So hopefully that little log there will give it the support it needs. Lining this garden is the lemon coral sedum, which is an annual. I saw this balloon flower and I had to have it. There's something about balloon flowers I love. And I think it's like popping the buds open. Who knows? But really, balloon flowers are kind of fun in my opinion. Verbena, this is sparkling amethyst, along with some of the Super Bells double amber. Little groupings there of daylilies, so 3 grouping there, and then you did a 3 grouping of the salvia, and then another grouping of daylilies. Along the wall, those are all annuals, plum dandy, and I'm not sure what that variegated one is. It was something new we carried this year. And then a 3 grouping here of the Phlox Ultra Pink. The next level up, we have a bunch of the Intensia Phlox, the red and the white Intensia Phlox, which is a great drought-tolerant, full sun-loving plant if you're looking for something like that. Also, there are some lavender planted in, and they're actually doing really nicely. I wasn't sure how the lavender would do, but it looks like it's doing great. Some Monarda, the pink you're seeing. And then anemone in the middle section for fall color. Along the back wall is the luminary ultraviolet. So those will be pretty when they bloom. This garden really is going to be like next year color. Some more daylilies, some more Monarda, and then hosta. So we know the deer will probably eat the hosta, but so far so good. So we're keeping our fingers crossed there. The next level up is really going to be beautiful once it matures. We've got 3 of the little lime punch hydrangeas. Let me walk up there and show you. So the 3 little lime punch hydrangeas are up against that big rock wall. So ideally those are going to cover that rock wall as they mature. They should get about 5 foot tall at maturity. If they're a little shorter, I'm okay with that. I just basically want that wall covered. We planted some ornamental grasses between the little lime punch. So that will be some fall color. That'll be pretty. The truffula pink here lining the edge. Some of the classic coral dianthus up here in the front. Looks like in that back far corner there's some more daylilies and Bernera. And then here we did some of the big leaf hydrangeas. And this one here is Let's Dance. And I believe it's a Reba. Let's take a closer look. Oh no, this is Let's Dance Can Do. So look at the beautiful flowers there on Can Do. That beautiful pink with a little bit of that white in the center. You can see how it's flowering now, and there's a lot of buds there for its secondary flush. Can Do is a mix between a big leaf hydrangea and a mountain hydrangea, so really hardy. So hopefully in this Zone 5 garden, we'll see how they come back next year, but I'm really excited because I think this is going to be the perfect hydrangea for this garden. So look at all the buds on that one over there. So really excited to watch. So I have one more garden. Thanks for sticking with me this far. I know this is like a big, huge video with lots of little snippets going on. So let's check out the last garden. I think you'll enjoy what you're going to see. So the last garden here is really, was really planted with the monarch butterflies in mind. Look at all that Asclepias, all that orange and red and yellow you're seeing. That's all Asclepias, which is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. We have Asclepias tuberosa, the beautiful orange. Behind it, we have some Allium serendipity, which would be a pollinator plant. This is an annual Asclepias. It's Asclepias orange is what it's called. We've got a few of the incredible or invincible hydrangeas in here. We've got the pink diamonds dicentra, which blooms all summer. More of the tuberosa. And the funny thing is like in my garden at home, I can't grow tuberosa. It just does not live. But in this garden, all these Asclepias are doing amazing. And especially the tuberosa, which, like I said, I cannot get it to live at my house. Some dill and fennel was planted in here as well as parsley for the black swallowtails, which we've seen in this area. This is an annual Asclepias, just Asclepias yellow, Asclepias red. We've got the wild rose Heuchera just for some added foliage color. Spot on. Got the white phlox along with more Allium serendipity and a hosta that the deer have found, but not too bad. And then we'll just take a look here up at this planting that Rod did from the bottom side up. And this is all of the feathered Frenzajuga along with the surefire red begonias. So really quite a beautiful patchwork of color on the side hill there. So hopefully you enjoyed walking through the garden. I think the biggest thing is it's fun to see like how the garden changes month to month, what's blooming and when. And I also hope that some of the information is helpful for you as far as what may or may not work in your garden. You know, if you have deer, I'm definitely being open with you of what's not working with the deer. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you're new to the station, subscribe, and we'll do a lot of garden tours as long as talk about new plants as well as products, a lot of information. Thank you for walking through the garden with me today. This is Heidi from Garden Crossings.